They burned everything we planted together. Every single one.
This is God's judgment, Sandra. Witchcraft has no place in this community.
Raymond, Meridian paid for your auditorium, and their hospital let my daughter die. So please tell me again whose judgment this is.
The morning Bishop Raymond called Sandra a witch on live television. She was barefoot in her garden, pulling lemongrass for a woman whose womb had been in pain for 6 years. She did not know it was happening. She found out from her neighbor, Mrs. Eze, who appeared at the gate with a face Sandra had never seen on her before, something between pity and distance, already distance. She did not come inside. She said it from the gate and left before Sandra could respond. Sandra went inside and turned on the television. Raymond's face filled the screen. White regalia, gold cross, 11,000 people on their feet behind him. He said her name twice. He gave her street. He said the word witchcraft 4 times and let each one land with the full weight of 30 years behind it. Sandra sat on the edge of her chair and did not move. She had come to Asaba 2 years after burying her daughter, Amara. She had chosen Asaba because it was her mother's city and because she needed somewhere that did not hold the shape of everything she had lost. She planted her garden the week she arrived. She received anyone who came to her door the way her grandmother had taught her, fully, patiently, as if their body was a letter she was reading carefully before she answered. She never put up a signboard. She never charged what she could have charged. She simply healed. For 2 years, nobody bothered her. She did not know about Meridian Health Group, did not know about the quarterly boardroom meeting where her name first appeared on a slide, did not know about the conversation between their CEO, Daniel Okafor, and Bishop Raymond in a private office with 40 million naira worth of auditorium construction plans sitting open on the table between them. She was in her garden when all of it was decided. She found out in front of 11,000 people on a Sunday she was not even present for. By evening, the first stone came through her window. Not from strangers, from the boy 3 houses down, whose mother Sandra had treated for severe arthritis 8 months ago. The mother had been unable to raise both arms above her head without screaming. Sandra had spent 6 weeks with her. The woman had wept the first morning she dressed herself without pain. Now, her son was in Sandra's yard with a stone and the particular courage that comes from a crowd behind you. Sandra did not go outside. She sat in her chair and looked at Amara's photograph on the wall. 6 years old, gap-toothed smile, yellow dress, holding a bunch of fresh mint in both hands, the way she always did, seriously, carefully, like something precious. Amara had loved the garden. She used to follow Sandra between the rows, asking the name of each plant, and Sandra would tell her, and Amara would repeat each name back slowly, as if memorizing them for something important. She had been sick for 11 days before any hospital would admit her properly. 11 days of Sandra carrying her daughter from one facility to another, explaining, begging, showing results, asking for the one treatment she knew could work. The treatment existed, the hospital had it, but it was not on Meridian's approved protocol and nobody in that building would sign the waiver. They gave Amara what the protocol permitted and managed her carefully and steadily downward. Amara died on a Wednesday morning with Sandra's hand wrapped around hers. Sandra did not scream in that hospital. She signed the papers they brought her, she collected her daughter's things, she walked to her car, she sat behind the wheel for a long time before she started it. She never went back to that city. She planted the garden in Asaba and she healed people, and she tried not to think about Meridian because thinking about them changed nothing that mattered. Until Raymond said her name on television and she understood that Meridian had never stopped thinking about her. The night they burned her garden, she stood at the window and watched. She recognized faces in the crowd, the woman whose husband she had pulled back from kidney failure, the man whose child had recovered from something 3 specialists had called permanent. Faces she knew, people whose hands she had held through the worst nights of their lives. They did not look at her window. She watched until the fire died. Then she went to her chair and breathed like she had taught herself to breathe after Amara. In for 4. Hold. Out for 4. The grief was not new. The ash smell coming through the window was new. Everything else she had already survived. In the morning, she opened her front door and stepped onto the veranda. Patricia, across the road, who had waved at Sandra every single morning for 2 years without missing once, looked up from her gate, saw Sandra, and looked away, kept walking, did not slow down. Sandra stood there and let that land. Then she went inside and made tea. She was not finished. That was the thing none of them had calculated. A woman who has already lost her child cannot be threatened with loss. They had burned her garden, they had taken her neighbors, they had taken her name from her mouth and made it mean something dark in 11,000 people's ears. And she was still standing on her veranda in the Asaba morning, drinking tea, barefoot. What remained of Sandra after Amara could not be burned. 6 months later in Lagos, Daniel Okafor was watching his daughter disappear. Claire was 17 when the diagnosis came. Rare, aggressive, attacking her body from the inside in ways that the best medical minds across 3 continents had not been able to reverse. Daniel flew her to London the week the results came, then Germany, then a facility in Houston that charged numbers that meant nothing to a man of his wealth. Claire came back from Houston thinner than she left. The trembling in her hands was worse. She struggled to hold her fork at dinner, and Daniel sat across from her and felt his money reach its limit for the first time in his life.
It was his driver who mentioned it. Quietly, carefully, over the steering wheel one morning, a whisper he had heard from a relative in Asaba. A woman with a gift. Herbs that worked where hospitals had not. A name people said carefully since the broadcast. Daniel said nothing. He stared out the window for 3 days. Then he booked Claire's flight. Claire arrived at Sandra's door on a Tuesday evening, supported by a private nurse, barely able to stand without assistance, eyes carrying the particular flatness of someone who has been ill long enough to stop expecting anything different. Sandra opened the door. She looked at this girl for a long moment. The thinness of her, the trembling, the exhausted eyes. She opened the door wider. The healing took 6 weeks. It was not dramatic. Real healing never is. It was patient and specific and responsive. Sandra adjusting, observing, listening to what Claire's body was saying back. Slowly, the trembling reduced. Slowly, the color returned. Slowly, Claire began sleeping through the night and waking up with something in her face that had not been there before. And she talked. The way people talk when they have not felt genuinely safe in a long time. About her father's world, enormous and efficient and utterly lonely inside. About being flown from specialist to specialist like a problem requiring the right expert rather than a daughter who needed someone to simply sit with her. About the specific sadness of being loved in the form of money by someone who did not know another form. Sandra listened, always, fully, never rushing. In the 4th week, Claire came in the evening and sat down and said without preparation, "My father is Daniel Okafor. I found out what he did to you. I cannot sit here and receive everything you are giving me and carry that at the same time." The room was very quiet. Sandra looked at Amara's photograph. Then she looked at Claire. "I know who your father is," she said. "I have known since the 2nd week." Claire's breath left her body. "You came here sick," Sandra said simply. "What your father did belongs to him, not to you. Come back Thursday. We're almost done. Claire went home healed, but she was not the same person who had arrived. She sat across from her father at dinner and looked at him with eyes that had spent 6 weeks learning what genuine character felt like and could now measure the distance between that and everything else. "The woman you destroyed saved my life," she said. "She knew who I was from the second week. She healed me anyway and said nothing." Daniel did not finish his dinner. He did not sleep that night. He sat in his office at 3 a.m. looking at the quarterly reports that had started everything and felt them grow smaller and more meaningless with each hour that passed. His daughter had been dying. A woman he deliberately and systematically destroyed had brought her back, had known who Claire was, had said nothing, had simply continued doing what she was built to do. He arrived at Sandra's compound the following Tuesday evening without his driver, plain shirt, the face of a man who had stopped managing himself. Sandra saw him from the window. She breathed slowly. She opened the door. He stood on her veranda and gave her everything. The meeting with Raymond, the 40 million, the instructions to his team. His voice was quiet and without performance. The specific sound of a man who has decided to simply tell the truth and hold whatever comes. When he finished, Sandra did not speak for a long moment. Then she asked, "Did you know about the hospital? Did you know what they refused to give my daughter?" The silence that followed was the most honest thing Daniel had produced in years. He said, "I knew." Something Sandra had been carrying for 3 years shifted its weight inside her chest. "Then fix what can still be fixed," she said quietly. "You cannot give me back what I lost, but there are other children in those hospitals right now. Fix it." He went to Raymond the following week, withdrew every naira of Meridian's sponsorship, submitted the full documented account of the arrangement to the church board and to 3 journalists, restructured the hospital treatment protocols himself, and requested the regulatory review. Raymond's congregation left the way trust always leaves, quietly, in ones and twos, people who had given years of their lives beginning to ask questions his pulpit voice could no longer silence. The auditorium construction stopped. The broadcasts became smaller. The 11,000 became something much quieter and more honest. Sandra planted new seeds on a Saturday morning. The soil was dark from the ash of everything that had burned. Her grandmother had told her once that the ground where something has been consumed is the richest ground for new growth, that fire does not end things, it prepares them. She finished planting and went inside and sat in her chair. She looked at Amara's photograph for a long time. Gap-toothed smile, yellow dress, fresh mint held in small satin hands. "We are all right," she said softly. Outside, the first green thing was already pushing up through the dark soil, quietly, certainly, the way all real things grow. Some people will try to silence you with fire. They will take your name, your garden, your peace, and stand back waiting for you to fall. But a woman who has already survived her deepest loss cannot be destroyed by anything that comes after it. Sandra never fought back. She never announced what she was building. She simply remained. And in remaining, she became the very person her enemies desperately needed. Your gift will always outlast the people who tried to bury it. Stay quiet. Stay rooted. Let God do the loud part. Sandra knew who Claire was from the second week and never said a word. She healed the daughter of the man who let her own daughter die. Could you have done the same? Be completely honest below. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to join our family of storytellers. Share this with someone who needs encouragement today. And don't forget to comment below. Tell us what you think or share your own story. We're all in this together. God bless you.